You walk into a clearing in the woods. Open grass, a few scattered trees, a slope leading down to water. You have never been here before in your life. And yet something in your chest loosens. Your shoulders drop. For reasons you cannot explain, this exact arrangement of grass and trees and water feels right, feels safe, feels somehow like home. You did not learn to feel this way. You were born feeling it. And the explanation reaches back further than any memory you actually own. In 1975, the geographer Jay Appleton published a theory that would quietly reshape how scientists understood human aesthetic preference. He called it prospect-refuge theory. Appleton noticed something strange in the landscapes humans consistently rated as beautiful across wildly different cultures. Parks, paintings, postcards, real estate listings. Again and again, the preferred landscape had two specific features. Prospect, meaning a clear, open view stretching outward. And refuge, meaning some form of shelter or cover close behind. A tree line at your back. A ridge to one side. Something solid behind you while open space extends in front. Appleton argued that humans do not find this combination beautiful by accident. They find it beautiful because it is, quite literally, the safest possible place to stand. Think about what that arrangement actually offers. From the refuge, you cannot be approached from behind without warning. From the prospect, you can see danger or opportunity approaching from a distance long before it arrives. You can watch without being watched. You can see food, water, or threats while remaining concealed yourself. For a small, slow, relatively defenseless primate moving across open landscape for nearly 2 million years, this was not a matter of taste. It was a matter of staying alive long enough to reproduce. The psychologist Gordon Orians at the University of Washington took Appleton's theory further with a study that on its surface sounds almost too strange to be real. Orians showed participants images of different landscapes and asked them to rate which ones they would prefer to live in or visit. Savanna landscapes, the open grassland with scattered acacia trees characteristic of East Africa, were consistently rated as more beautiful than other biomes, even by people who had never set foot in Africa, who lived their entire lives in temperate forests or cities, who had no cultural connection to that specific landscape whatsoever. Children as young as 8, tested before extensive exposure to media or travel, showed the same preference. Something in the human nervous system responds to the savanna specifically, not because anyone taught it to, but because the savanna is where the modern human brain itself was built. This is the part that should stop you. Roughly 2 million years of hominid evolution, the stretch of time during which the human brain grew to roughly triple its size, took place predominantly on the East African savanna. Every cognitive adaptation your brain carries, every instinct, every aesthetic preference baked into your nervous system was shaped by that specific environment. Open grass for visibility, scattered trees for shade, fruit, and escape from ground predators, water sources nearby but not too close, a slight elevation to survey the land. This was not one landscape among many that early humans happened to live in. This was the landscape that built the equipment you are using to read these words right now. The biologist E.O. Wilson called this phenomenon biophilia, the innate human tendency to seek connections with nature, and specifically with the kinds of natural settings that supported survival across evolutionary history. Wilson argued that biophilia is not a cultural preference learned through exposure to gardens or nature documentaries. It is a genetically encoded affinity, as real and as automatic as the instinct that makes infants seek a parent's face. You did not choose to find sunsets beautiful. You did not choose to feel calm near water. These responses were installed before you had any say in the matter, by ancestors whose survival depended on noticing exactly these features of the landscape and feeling drawn toward them. Consider water specifically. Across nearly every culture studied, humans report a measurable calming response to the sight, sound, or proximity of water. Real estate near water costs more in nearly every market on Earth, regardless of local culture or climate. The marine biologist Wallace J. Nichols documented this phenomenon extensively, coining the term blue mind to describe the mildly meditative state humans enter near water. Nichols found measurable changes in brainwave activity, heart rate, and breathing simply from looking at water, even in laboratory settings using video footage rather than the real thing. Why would your nervous system respond this specifically to water? Because for nearly the entirety of human evolutionary history, proximity to fresh water determined whether you lived through the week. Every successful ancestor you have ever had built camp near water, drank from water, fished, or foraged near water. The ones who did not survive to pass anything on. This is why certain architecture feels wrong before you can articulate why. A building with no windows, no clear sightline, no sense of what lies beyond its walls triggers a low-grade unease that has nothing to do with the structure's actual safety. The architect and researcher Christopher Alexander spent decades studying what he called the quality without a name, an attempt to identify why certain buildings and spaces feel alive and comfortable, while others, technically identical in function, feel sterile and wrong. Much of what Alexander identified maps directly onto prospect-refuge principles. Spaces with a clear view outward and a sense of enclosure behind consistently outperformed open, exposed plazas or enclosed, viewless rooms in measures of human comfort and preference across cultures, across centuries, across architectural styles that had no contact with one another. Your office cubicle, if it backs onto a wall and faces an open room, is unconsciously satisfying a 2-million-year-old instinct. Your favorite reading chair, the one tucked into a corner facing the room, is doing the same thing. The booth you always request at a restaurant, the tree you instinctively sit beneath at a park rather than the open field beside it. None of these choices are arbitrary. None of them were taught to you in any formal sense. They are the savanna, reconstructed in miniature, wherever you happen to find yourself. This raises an uncomfortable question about the modern built environment. Skyscrapers with floor-to-ceiling glass and no sense of refuge. Open-plan offices with desks facing every direction and no solid wall behind any of them. High-rise apartments disconnected from any visible ground, water, or greenery. These environments are not neutral. To a nervous system built on the savanna, they can register faintly but persistently as exposed. Not dangerous exactly, but unsettled, unplaced. The research on biophilic design, incorporating natural light, greenery, water features, and sightlines into modern architecture, consistently shows measurable reductions in stress hormones and measurable increases in reported well-being among people who work and live in such spaces. This is not interior decorating. This is an attempt to speak a language your nervous system has been fluent in for 2 million years and has never forgotten. You will likely never live on the African savanna. You may never see one in person. And yet, it lives in you, encoded into the architecture of your perception, shaping which hillsides catch your breath, which rooms make you uneasy, which views make you exhale without knowing why. The body remembers a landscape the mind has never visited. It is not nostalgia. It is not coincidence. It is the oldest map you own, drawn before history began, still open in your hands every time you walk into a room and feel, for reasons you cannot name, exactly where you should stand. You walk into a clearing in the woods. You have never been here before in your life, and somehow you already know the way home.